I should have got some tea. We have a bunch of tea, and I should have made myself a cup of tea. That would have been good. All I have is this water. I have a water bottle and a glass of water. Um, yeah, it'll be good enough, I think. Let's make sure the volume works. Yep, that definitely works. Let's put this in the chat. And let's pin it. Pin message. There we go. Beautiful. So, when was it? Last week? Sometime last week, I posted my Deconstruction Zone video. And it did pretty good. Honestly, it did pretty good. I got a lot of interaction. That's a nice way to put it. I got a lot of, I didn't read almost any of them, really, because it's a waste of time. You know, once you've been in this space for more than a few months, you realize the hostility that you receive. And you know what, honestly, it's not even a religious thing. It's not even a Christian versus atheist thing. It's just, I think it's just an internet thing. I think that being on the internet is, you're asking for it, really. The nature of the internet is for people to be vile, to say things that they would never say in real life. Now, like, full transparency, I'm guilty as well. You know, I think we're all guilty of saying things online that we shouldn't have, behaved in ways online that we shouldn't have. But at the same time, I feel like politics and religion are specifically two spheres where the online discourse is less than spectacular, I would say. And I think that that's pretty clear. It's definitely clear from the Deconstruction Zone video. Almost no, well, there were a few people, and you know, that's what's sad is there are some people who really do want to engage with the arguments and do want to interact with the arguments and do want to have a meaningful conversation, but the majority of the people that you're interacting with couldn't care less. Most of them, and you know what, most of them probably didn't even, well, I know for a fact most of them didn't watch the video to the end, because there were multiple comments saying, well, why don't you join his video call? Why don't you talk with him? Why don't you go live with him? And if you watch to the end of the video, you would see that I say that, or I say that I would never go live with him. I have zero interest in joining one of his calls. The way that he behaves, the way that he interrupts people, the way that he bulldozers people, doesn't let them speak, doesn't let them get a point across. They'll say one word and then he'll interrupt them, and then act like it's a big gotcha moment. It's not. It's not how you do online discourse. It's definitely not how you do debates. It's not how you do meaningful conversations at all. And to think that to interrupt people every sentence and then act like you won the conversation, it's childish. And I have no interest in doing that to myself. There's nothing of his content that would lead me to believe that any interaction that we have would be meaningful. Now, again, as I said in the video, there is meaning in interacting with his content and understanding how a Christian is supposed to answer those type of objections. The objections themselves can be helpful and can be useful and can be important to discuss and talk about, even if the person presenting them is disingenuous and not worth engaging with live. I don't think it would be meaningful. I don't think it would be helpful. I'm talking about Deconstruction Zone for anyone who doesn't know. I posted a video interacting with his content, and a lot of people in the comments, I say a lot, it wasn't that many, but people in the comments said, well, why don't you go live with him? Why don't you join his calls? And if they watched the video, they would know that at the end of the video, I specifically say that I will not do it because his behavior is not conducive with meaningful conversations. It would be a waste of my time. It'd be a waste of his time. There's really no point. But there is a point in interacting with his arguments, even if he presents them in an immature way. The objections can still stand. What are you talking about, the Christian? Where did God come from? Well, that's a category error because God, by definition, is uncreated. So you can't have someone who's uncreated be created. That's a common objection, but it doesn't work because Christians believe that all created things were created. But because God is not a created being, he is not created. He died for our sins. Did he die for human genocides, massacres, murders, etc.? Well, it's a good question. Paul, he didn't himself murder anyone, but he oversaw and approved of the murdering of Christians, and Jesus forgave him. Jesus changed his life, and it's not like there's a silly meme. It was a Family Guy meme where the military busts down this Taliban house and they get ready to shoot this terrorist, and right before they shoot him he says, I accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior, and then he dies and he goes to heaven and he's like, yeah, I did it. That's stupid and that's not how it works. In Matthew chapter 7, Jesus says on the day of judgment there's going to be a lot of people who say, Lord, Lord. The meaning is emphatically like, Jesus, we're Christians, we said the prayer one time. His response to them is, depart from me, I never knew you, you workers of lawlessness. So the idea is that if Jesus forgives you, then you're going to have a transformed life. That's the whole point of the Epistle of James, is that you claim to have faith, that's good, but where are your works? Where's the fruit? Where's the evidence of your regeneration? In fact, 1 John deals a lot with the evidence of regeneration. So God can forgive a murderer, God can forgive anyone, but the idea that comes with that, generally, more often than not, is people think that the person is just a murderer and they don't really care, and then they just ask for forgiveness, and then that's that. How could have he made the universe if he is uncreated? Simple, by creating the universe. I'm not sure what uncreatedness has to do with him creating anything. An uncreated being isn't limited by his ontology to the point that he can't create something himself. That doesn't make sense. I'm not following your argument there. Since Jesus knew Judas was going to betray him and still let him betray him, is Judas in hell or heaven? Judas shows no remorse in the Gospels. Well, that's not true. He was remorseful, but feeling bad for what you did is not the same as repenting for what you did. There's a sorrow that leads to repentance and leads to a changed life, and then there's a sorrow that comes because you're an idiot and you're stupid and you made stupid choices. I don't think you need to be a Christian necessarily to feel bad for betraying someone who's done nothing but good to you. So Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray him. In fact, in the Gospels, it specifically says that Jesus knew, and he still let him do it, but that's not the same as Jesus forcing him to do it. I think that, Judas could have at any moment said, hey, I don't really want to do this anymore, and then that would all be fine and dandy. But just because Jesus knows something is going to happen doesn't mean that that person is no longer culpable for what they did. I hope that makes sense. Oh, delicious water. Um, what else do we got? I was going to talk about, let's go back over here. I was going to talk about the burden of proof. Oh, here we go. Was Eve the first woman, or was it Lilith? Yeah, um, a myth about Lilith. There's different theories about Lilith. Some say that she was the first. Some say that there was Eve and Lilith. Some say there's some variation of the two. Um, Lilith is a post-Pentateuch apocryphal myth. There's no there's no biblical evidence for Lilith. There's no biblical ideas of Lilith or any of that stuff. She was a later development in the history of Gnostic thought. So she's nowhere in the Bible. All we know is Adam and Eve. We don't know anything about any other mates of anything like that. Okay, I'm a Christian too. How would you respond if someone said God said though, I think you meant say thou shall not kill. So if God never sinned, why did he lead his people into battle against Jericho and allow David to Goliath? I think you meant say David to kill Goliath. That's a really good question. Let me pull up Isaiah. I brought this up in my debate with Robert Setlock. No, not Robert. This was in my debate with, what's his name? Chris May. I mentioned that oftentimes, more often than not, oh yeah, you're good. I knew what you meant. More often than not, God will use, in fact, Romans chapter 13 specifically says that God uses people and establishments to punish other people. So in Romans chapter 13, it's the government. It says that God uses the government to punish evil people. And in Isaiah chapter 10, let's do the CSB. I like the CSB. Let's find here. Assyria. Okay, so this is Isaiah chapter 10. Listen to what he says. Why is it Germany, and am I joining, and is it English? My last name is Germany. I don't speak German. That's just my last name. You can join the Discord, or you can phone call, or whatever you want to do. Isaiah chapter 10. Okay. Woe to Assyria, the rod of my anger, the staff in their hands is my wrath. I will send him against a godless nation. I will command him to go against a people destined for my rage, to take spoils, to plunder, and to trample them down like clay in the streets. So the idea is that God uses people and uses nations even to enact judgment against wicked nations. And you see this with Israel throughout the Old Testament. God tells Israel that to go in and conquer and to wipe out nations. And the reason is because these nations are evil. These nations are horrible people. They commit child sacrifice, which is what we're doing today with abortion. They're murderers. They're wicked. And God has had enough of it. And he sends Israel in to punish them. So it's not that these are innocent people and God is killing people for no reason. The fact is that these people were evil and God enacted judgment against them. That's the biblical answer. So same thing with David and Goliath, right? If Goliath would have said, you know what, I really love God. He's a great guy. I want to serve him. I want to honor him. Then David wouldn't have to kill him. But he mocked God for however long they were on the battlefield. Could have been days, could have been weeks, could have been months. Mocking God to his people, essentially to his face. I don't know about you, but if I was God, I'd feel like you deserve some justice. Okay, good question. Really good question. Yeah, I am not German, not German at all. In fact, my family comes from Ireland, I think is where we originated from, which doesn't make any sense. How do you get the last name Germany when you come from Ireland? It doesn't make much sense. It does not make sense at all. Yes, everything's in English on this channel. I did want to talk about the burden of proof. A lot of times, I'd say almost all the time, atheists will say that Christians have the burden of proof to prove that God exists, as if the neutral position is the non-existence of God, which they just assume, they just pretend like that's the natural and neutral position. And then they try to say, oh, well, you're making a claim, so you need to prove it. Multiple problems with that. One problem, let's say that two people are in a kitchen, okay? And one of them says, hey, let's have some dinner. And the other one says, okay, I'm going to boil some water. So he puts water in a pot, turns the stove on, the fire ignites, the gas ignites, and then he says a prayer to the boiling water gods. And he says, oh, boiling water gods, make this water boil. And then the water starts boiling. And then the second man says, hey, what are you doing? There's no boiling water gods. That's just science. You just heated the water up until it started to boil. But the man who believed in the boiling water god says, well, you're making that claim, and so you need to prove it. And so the second man does all these scientific experiments and breaks down the boiling point of water and explains how the heat transfers to the water and it makes it boil. And then the first man says, well, yeah, because that's what the boiling water god does. He makes the water boil when you sacrifice fire to him. It's a silly analogy, but it's exactly what atheists do. They pretend like the non-existence, or in an agnostic's case, the unknowability of God is such that if you claim that there is a God, then the burden of proof is on you. A completely ahistorical position. In the history of humanity, general theism has been the predominant view. Secular atheism didn't start until the Enlightenment. If anyone needs to back up their claims, it's the atheist. The burden of proof is on them to prove that God, who clearly does exist, actually doesn't exist. They're the ones making a claim. They're the ones going against the evidence. It's their responsibility to back up that claim. Along with that, there are multiple types of evidences for different types of problems. For example, a scientific question, again, going back to the boiling water, that's purely naturalistic, that's positivist. You would have to use, or you could use, scientific inquiries and scientific methodology to prove that when you heat up water enough, it does actually boil. Hello, Nathan. But you cannot use the scientific method to prove things like the human conscience. You cannot use the scientific method to prove things like love, right? Like if someone said, "Do you love your wife?" and I said, "Well, let's put my wife in a test tube and pour a bunch of chemicals on her and we'll see what happens." No, that doesn't work. You prove different things in different ways. Now, what critics of Christianity, especially Deconstruction Zone, especially I keep forgetting his name, something Creek, Salmon Creek, something. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to look it up right now. A lot of atheist apologists will pretend like theological questions can only be answered by scientific means, but that's not how we prove things. That's not how we, different things have different categories of proof. You would not prove that you love your wife in the same way that you prove that water boils when it's heated up. In the same way, the existence of God is proved differently than how we prove scientific inquiries. So to demand, as atheist apologists do, that we prove the existence of God by purely rationalistic means when God is not material, they've already, from the outset, won, in a sense, because you cannot prove Christian theism. I mean, you can, if you use the transcendental argument, you can prove Christian theism through the scientific method. But through positivist scientific experiments, you can't prove God's existence. But they want you to do that, and they demand that you do that, and then they pretend like if you can't do that or won't do that, then they've won. When in reality, they haven't. It's their responsibility to prove their position. And they can't do it because God clearly exists. The universe clearly had a beginning. God is the precondition for the intelligibility of our reality. That's just a fact. So the burden of proof is on them. And the method of proof is different for different types of inquiries. You cannot answer theological questions with scientific inquiries. You cannot answer, like if you ask someone, what is a human conscience? How do you answer that? Do you answer that scientifically? Do you use the scientific method to answer that? Do you use rationalism? Do you use your brain to answer that? Do you use theology to answer that? These are all questions that we have to figure out what's the question and how best do we answer it. But the atheist wants to say that the existence of God can only be proved by means that from the outset don't prove him. Unless you use the transcendental method, then you can prove him using science. But most people don't use that method, so it's a little bit different. Okay. I know different Christians have different opinions about this, but I personally think science and Christianity correlate within each other, and show definitive proof of God. I'm not quite sure what you mean at the end there with each other, and show definitive proof of God. Yeah, so science and Christianity go perfectly together because if the world was created by chance, then there is no such thing as a scientific method. There's only the scientific guessing. You can't actually, so the uniformity of nature, right? We have to have uniformity in nature if we're going to do any scientific inquiry at all. But there is no uniformity of nature if the universe is not created and governed by an intelligent being. That's why we can have scientific methods. That's why we can have scientific inquiry, because God controls the world. And because in Genesis 1 and 2, it says that he created things, and he created the order of the world, and he created the inductive principle, and he created the uniformity of nature. So we can expect the sun to rise tomorrow. We can expect when you boil water that it actually gets hot. Within atheism, you could boil water and then it would turn cold, because as David Hume pointed out, and no atheist has ever been able to answer this, as David Hume pointed out, how do you answer the problem of induction? How do you know that tomorrow is going to be like the past? Well, the atheist, because they believe in a chance universe, they just have to have blind faith. They just have to believe. They don't have any proof that tomorrow is going to be like the past. They just have to close their eyes and believe. That's why atheism is a religion. It's the goofiest of all the religions, but it is one nonetheless. And that's the other thing, Ball Network. Science and religion are answered, like I just mentioned, in different ways. So the Bible, dogma, I should say, not the Bible, but dogma does not claim, should not claim to have jurisdiction over scientific methodology. For example, I got an example here. This is a really good example. Okay. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure I'm not butchering his name. Okay, Copernicus. I knew it was Copernicus something. Copernicus said that the Earth spins on its axis and orbits around the sun. So heliocentricity. Up to that point, Christians believed in that the Earth was the center of the universe. I think it's called geocentricity. Yeah, geocentricity. That was the predominant view, and Christians used the Bible to support that position. Well, the Bible doesn't say specifically, dogmatically, I should say, that the sun orbits around the Earth. Rather, science figured out that the Earth orbits around the sun. So, which one has the final say? Well, and again, we're not talking about the Bible, we're talking about dogma. In areas of science and scientific methodology, science has to have authority. In the same way, in religion, theology has to have authority. As a Christian, we can say that science is the authority on scientific issues. That's not a problem. The atheist wants to say, yes, yes, amen, hallelujah. Also, science is the authority in theological questions, and we're not willing to grant that. We're not going to pretend like science can answer theological questions when it cannot. Science deals with nature. Science deals with the physical reality as we see it. What can science tell us about love? What can science tell us about conscience? What can science tell us about the scientific method and its usefulness? Should it be used? Those are questions that you can't answer with science. Science is very limited, but the atheist wants to pretend like it can answer theological and religious questions. Delicious. Delicious water. Good questions. I feel like when you speak to people who don't believe in God, you can't speak to them in a Christian way, meaning you can't use the Bible to prove a point because they don't believe in the Bible. Yeah, so Cornelius Van Til, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he talks extensively about this. You cannot, first of all, everyone believes in God. Romans chapter 1 says that God's evidence has been made manifest so that all people are without excuse. Everyone knows God exists, but again, Romans chapter 1 says that they want to suppress the truth of God in their unrighteousness. So you don't need to prove God exists because atheists already know he does, they just don't like him. Now, with that in mind, when you are evangelizing, when you are doing apologetics, you do not ever set the Bible aside. Do not ever say, well, I'm not going to use the Bible. Because what happens is let's say you convert them. Let's say you don't use the Bible and you use autonomous human reasoning, and then they say, okay, you have used human reasoning to show me that I should become a Christian. Now that I'm a Christian, what's my epistemic authority? Well, now it's the Bible. But to get to Christianity, it was human autonomous reasoning. But now that you are a Christian, it's the Bible and it's God's authority. You see the problem there? We want to be consistent pre-conversion and post-conversion. The Bible is the authority for all men, whether they're saved or not. So you don't want to not use the Bible. And again, because the Bible says of the non-Christian that they know God exists, they're without excuse, but they want to suppress that truth in their unrighteousness. So if you want a really good book, good introductory level, it's I have it. I don't have it. I let a friend borrow it. Vodi Balcom. His, what was it called? Expository Apologetics. So Vodi Balcom has a book called Expository Apologetics. Here, I'll put it in the chat. Oops, that's Audible. I don't want Audible. This is a really good introductory level book for anyone that wants to learn more about that. I would recommend Cornelius Van Til, but he is rather advanced. That's something that you want to be reading later on in your apologetic career, if you want to call it that. Ray Blue, good to see you, Brandon. What's up, Ray Blue? I feel like you're a subscriber, right? I feel like I've seen you before. Ray Blue 5. I definitely feel like I've seen you. Let me throw this in the chat real quick. Yes. Yeah, I remember you. Ray Blue. That sounds so familiar. One of my favorite books is The Shack. The Shack has horrible theology. Don't read The Shack. Get rid of that book. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, but like not kidding. Oh, it's too long. I was gonna post the link, but it's too long to post in the chat. So I'll just post the title of the book, and that'll just have to be good enough. If you're interested and want to learn more, you can Google it, look it up, and I highly, highly recommend this one. With the Power of the Word by Vodi Balcom. I highly recommend this one here. It should be popping up any second, hopefully. Yep, that one. Expository Apologetics, Answering Objections with the Power of the Word. Oops, I forgot a space, by Vodi Balcom. That's a really good introductory one. It's also just a really good one to have in your library. Oh my gosh, don't screen record. It's a really good one to have in your library. Like I said, I did have it. I let a friend borrow it, and it's been a few years now. I'll probably just order another copy at this point. But after that one, if you read that, I'd say the next level, if you will, would be Francis Schaeffer. He has a book called The God Who Is There. God Who Is There. That's a good, Francis Schaeffer. Nice and French. The God Who Is There, Francis Schaeffer. This one is a good, like mid-level screen recording. Yeah, please don't. Voice crack. Oh my goodness. This one, The God Who Was There, again, forgot the space. Nice. By Francis Schaeffer. That's a good like mid-level. If you have read theology, if you have been a Christian for a while, if you do know some apologetics, I'd say that that's a good one to pick up. Highly, highly, highly recommend that one. That one is like, it's like Van Til, if Van Til is too hard. A lot of the stuff that he talks about and communicates is very presuppositional. It's very transcendental, but it's accessible also. And then after that one, the next, the like highest, I don't know about highest, but the once you're getting really good at apologetics and really good at the theology, I would recommend Christian Apologetics by Van Til. I have all of Van Til's published works. He has a bunch of unpublished stuff. May I ask, are you Catholic or do you identify? I am a Protestant. I am a Protestant. I'm a Reformed Baptist. I am not Catholic. Not Catholic at all. Cornelius Van Til. Throw this one in the chat. Definitely not Catholic. Christian Apologetics, 2nd edition by Cornelius Van Til. Apologetics and theology, why not unbiased scholarship? Well, because unbiased scholarship doesn't exist. There's no such thing as unbiased scholarship. Everyone Everyone has a bias toward the existence of God. Everyone has a bias toward the claims of Jesus and the claims of Christ. There's no such thing as, sorry guys, people are blowing my phone up. Let me mute this. There we go. All right. No such thing as unbiased. Because the Bible says that everyone knows God exists, but they want to suppress that truth in their unrighteousness. Need a t-shirt that reads "Definitely not Catholic." I bet you they have it. I bet you on Amazon. Definitely not Catholic t-shirt. There's a book. Catholics are not Christian. There's a bunch of pro-Catholic stuff. I became a Christian. All I got was this lousy t-shirt. There's no shirts that say "Definitely not Catholic." If you make one, send it my way and I will wear it. That's a claim, baseless too. I mean, okay, I'm not going to play the claim game. Sorry. Like, I swear, atheists. Are you atheist or agnostic? I'm assuming you're probably atheist. Atheists love. Didn't I just? Oh my gosh! I don't know if you guys were still here. I've been doing this for like 37 minutes. I just started the video talking about how atheists claim that the non-existence of God is like the baseline. Like everyone knows God doesn't exist. Duh. If you say he does exist, then it's your job to prove he does exist. That's completely not. First of all, not how it works. I gave a great analogy. I thought it was a great analogy of boiling water, right? I don't really want to do it again right now. Maybe if this guy's still here, I'll still do it. Do you think Catholics go to heaven because I'm Protestant too, but think they will go to heaven? Yeah, I think that most Catholics will go to heaven because you're not saved by correct doctrine. You're not saved by correct dogmas. You're saved by the power of Jesus Christ and by faith in his work on your behalf, which Catholics, they do believe that Christ died on their behalf, but they have a bunch of extra doctrines that are contrary to the early church, contrary to historic Christianity, and especially contrary to the Bible. So they are Christians, but they have a lot of additional things that are troublesome and are not helpful, not good at all. So yeah, I think most of them will go to heaven. You're not saved by the church, you're saved by faith in him. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And I think that Catholics are saved despite their theology of the church, despite their sola ecclesia, which Catholics don't think that about us. Catholics say that, in Trent, during the Council of Trent, they said this. They've since backed off since Vatican II, but they said that there's no salvation outside of the church. They said that if you're not a Catholic, then you're automatically anathema, you're automatically going to hell. They've backpedaled it, and they've said, well, it's still the case, but also like you can be a part of the church even though you're not part of the church. I don't know. It's very confusing. I'm not a Catholic. No way. You couldn't pay me enough. Okay. Do you believe the Bible to be completely true or partially true? I believe the Bible is. I'm actually just learning about the difference between infallibility and inerrancy. Infallibility. I'm going to butcher this. I would do it off the top of my head, but I don't want someone to screen record and then upload. Brandon doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay. Inerrant means containing no errors. Okay. And infallible is incapable of failing. Okay. So inerrancy is the idea that there are no errors in the Bible, and infallibility is more the idea that the Bible is true and correct in what it. How do I say it? It's correct to get the point across. I think that the Bible, especially in the original manuscripts, were inerrant and infallible. They were perfect. The problem is that atheists today and critics of the Bible today are anachronistic and they're unfair in their understanding of the Bible, and they want to put 21st century scientific lens on the Bible, forsake historical context, forsake linguistic context, change the meanings of words. So, for example, this is a silly example, but it's what they do. The Psalms say that God will cover you with His wings. Well, a critic could look at that and say, "Aha! God doesn't have wings, therefore the Bible is full of errors." Well, no, that's not. The Bible wasn't saying that God has feathers. The Bible doesn't say He's a big bird. The Bible was trying to get the point across that He protects those He loves and He cares for those He loves. So, way off topic. You made me think about a bunch of stuff. So, do you believe the Bible to be completely true or partially true? I believe that it is completely true insofar as it communicates what it's meant to communicate. It's not. People say like, oh, if there's errors in the Bible, then God doesn't exist. No, that's not how that works. As the Bible is translated and goes down through time, there are additions, there are changes, and it's the purpose of textual criticism to find out what the original manuscripts said. There's no, I'm not scared to say that throughout history there were things added that were not supposed to be added. There were errors and there were corrections that had to be made. But there's nothing, I got to add a caveat. I'll get to some of these other replies. There's nothing in the Bible that is corrupt, changed, edited, that affects or changes someone's salvation at all. There's nothing about core Christian beliefs. In fact, the errors, if you want to call them that, in the manuscript tradition is less than 1%, and most of them are grammatical. There's no manuscript that we've found that changes what Christians believe. There's nothing that says, Jesus was just a man and He wasn't God. That stuff doesn't happen. Okay. What's the reason Christians making the claim? Oh my gosh, we got another claim. All right, let's do it. What's the reason Christians making the claim the Bible is true not have the burden? Weaver makes the positive claim has the burden. I'm not quite. I don't know what that means. What's the reason Christians making the claim the Bible is true not have the burden? I think what you mean to say is Christians don't have the burden of proof to prove how Christianity is true. Whoever makes the positive claim has the burden. You know what? I should have just. I wish someone would call in or do a Discord, because I started the stream before all you guys, like 12 people. I did this whole story about the burden of proof and claims and who has the burden of proof. And I should have just waited. Until everyone was here making claims and stuff. Okay. The Bible is completely true, but God sometimes uses stories to describe certain sins and points. The parables especially, yes. The Bible is true, but a lot of people misinterpret the Bible, which makes it wrong. Yep. What's your favorite Bible to read from? I like KJV. I like the CSB, Christian Standard Bible. That's the one that I prefer. It's very readable. I enjoy using that one. That's my favorite. Hello, Saints. Hello. Who TF were you arguing who uses the God not having wings as their argument? Nobody. I went on a tangent. I was talking about, I don't know if you caught all of it, but I was talking about biblical infallibility and biblical inerrancy. And I was talking about how some people, this is just my experience, some people will use poetic or apocalyptic language in the Bible to try to disprove the credibility of the Bible. So I use the example of wings. right? The Psalms say that God will cover you with his wings, and the critic can look at that and say, "Aha! See right there, the Bible says that God has wings, therefore God doesn't exist," and miss the point that the point the psalmist was trying to get across was that God protects those and cares for those He loves. So that was the point. Me blood. I don't know what me blood means. Yeah, I know, bud. It was a rhetorical question. You did a bad job of mischaracterizing criticisms of the Bible. I actually did a phenomenal job. I actually did a really great job because I've been doing this my entire adult life. And it is amazing. Now, the example I used was extreme, but the principle is the same. So if you want a better example, since you're such a nice, kind guest, in Matthew, Jesus makes predictions about the end of the age. And he says things like, he talks about the moon turning to blood, and he talks about stars falling to the earth. Now, biblical critics will look at that and say, that never happened, therefore Jesus lied. Not knowing that Jesus was using apocalyptic language borrowed from Isaiah chapter 11 to prove a theological point. So I actually did a really good job. I guess maybe you haven't done biblical criticism enough to know the point that I was trying to get at. Respectfully, of course, respectfully. Mischaracterizing criticisms of the Bible. Delicious water. Oh my goodness. What else do we want to talk about? Well, we talked about the burden of proof. I don't really want to go over the burden of proof again. Look, I spent like 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes of the stream, talking about the burden of proof. The burden of proof is on the atheist for multiple reasons. The atheist likes to pretend like disbelief in God is the neutral and natural position when it's actually not, historically or theologically. There's also different types of proof. The atheist wants to pretend like theological questions can be answered scientifically when they cannot. So you put those two together, the burden of proof is on the atheist. Not to mention historically, the vast, overwhelming majority of human history has been theistic. It wasn't until the Enlightenment came along that atheism started to sprout its ugly head. So the burden of proof is on atheists to prove that their claim that God doesn't exist is true. But it's a claim that they're not willing to back up. They want to throw the claim word around and be like, "Oh, you're making a claim. Yeah, so are you, dude. So are you." Respectfully, if God doesn't exist, why would someone get so mad at people talking about God? Well, it's because Romans chapter 1 is true. Because everyone knows that God exists, but they want to suppress that truth in their unrighteousness. That's what I was talking about earlier, Ball Network. Everyone knows God exists, but they don't want to be held accountable for the way that they live their life. So instead of submitting to him as their God, submitting to him as their Lord, they would rather pretend like he doesn't exist to sear their conscience so they don't have to worry about it. If you just close your eyes, it's like a kid playing hide and seek. You're a toddler playing hide and seek. They hide in the corner somewhere and then close their eyes and they think, well, if I can't see them, then they can't see me, and they think it's the same way with God. When unfortunately, it's just not. Everyone knows God exists. We got a call.
Voicemail, press 2.
What's up, brother? Can you hear me?
Hello. I can hear you.
How's it going, man?
Good. I was just had a question. Are you still doing the burden of proof thing or not?
I'm not doing anything right now, man. What's up? Oh well, he hung up. I meant to say I'm not doing anything as in I'm not talking about anything specifically. I could still be doing the burden of proof. I think it's a fascinating conversation. I hope you guys could hear him as well. I had my volume all the way up on here. Did you hear that, Ray Blue? Maybe he was confused. Maybe he thought that I I wasn't talking about it anymore. Okay, I can hear. Man, that's too bad. Should I try calling him back? Should I try calling him back, chat? What do you think? Should I call him back? I disagree. You can't make yourself believe something you can't find convincing. Were you the guy that just called? That's. I feel like that's. Maybe he thought you weren't streaming. Man, maybe. What do you guys think? Should I try calling him back? Maybe I can shoot him a text. Let me try that. Oh, more options. Message. We are still live if you want to call back. There we go. I just shot him a text. We'll see if he responds back. That would have been fun. That would have been a great conversation. I would have loved to. Well, if he doesn't call back, Reeser Rice. I hope I said that right. You should call. Let's talk. I'll be nice. I promise. I'm really nice in real life. There was one time. Hold on. What did this person say? Oh, it was you. Yeah, there was one person. I was interacting with the chats, tons of chats, and one person was like, "Brandon, don't get so riled up. It's gonna be okay." And I told him, I was like, it's part of the game. When you do streaming, if you're too boring, people tune out. It's just the nature of the game. You gotta keep people's attention, and a good way to do that is to be over the top and be wacky and be ridiculous. So, man, that's too bad. That's too bad. I'm so sad that he hung up. That would have been a great conversation. That would have been really good. Well, Reese, if you want to call or join Discord or whatever, I would love to talk more about it. I just don't want to talk about it on the stream again because I spent so much time at the beginning of the stream going over it and going over my analogy, and I don't want to have to do it all again. It's so much work. Sure, another time. Okay, no problem. I don't have a set streaming schedule. I just stream whenever I can. So I wish I could tell you when next time was going to be, but I don't know. I do not know. Well, I shot him a text. We'll see if he responds. He probably won't. Yeah, that was 2 minutes ago. Yeah, he's not calling back. Oh well, it was, still fun, still good. Well, what else do we want to talk about? We talked about the burden of proof. We talked about types of evidence, different types of evidence. Yeah, my latest video with Deconstruction Zone I got a lot of love from that one. That's for sure. And like I said in the video, I will never go live with him. I will never join his stream. You could not pay me enough money to join his stream. Absolutely not. That guy has the maturity of a 5-year-old. Not interested. Not interested at all. Man, that's so sad. I wish that guy didn't hang up. I really think that he thought I was done. I think you're right, Ray. He probably thought that I was done streaming, and then he just hung up. Darn, that's too bad. So sad. Could have been a really good conversation. Could have been great. Oh well, you can't win them all. What are you gonna do, Hey Ray, are you still in the chat? Ray Blue number 5. The violin. Where are you from? Ray? Oh, he just texted me back. He says, I'll call back. Give me a few. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for him, tell us about yourself, Ray. Are you Christian? What denomination? Where are you from? West Coast? Me too. I'm in Oregon. But I'm a truck driver, so I go all the way up to Washington. Haven't gone to California, but California, yeah. Okay, what part of California? Christian, okay. LA? Oh, man, you got to get out of there. You got to get out of there, man. You don't want to be in LA. Terrible. Terrible. Come up here. Come up to Portland. Portland is great, man. I'm kidding. Portland is not great. Portland is terrible. Terrible. You know a city that I visited that I really love? I drove through there, an hour north of LA. Was Spokane. I've done multiple deliveries up to Spokane, and I love that city. That's just a really good city. Like, you ever just drive through someplace and you're like, wow, I really like this place. What's the population of Spokane? We in the countryside, lol. So you're far away from all the nonsense then. What denomination of Christian? Are you Protestant as well? Yes. So Spokane is 230,000 people. It's about almost 600,000 in the broader county. Interesting. Catholic to Protestant. Wow, awesome. I'd love to hear your story of how you went from Catholic to Protestant. I'm very fascinated in those kinds of stories. It might be a lot to type out in the chat, so maybe if you want to do it briefly, if you can just briefly explain what happened. If not, that's fine too. Whatever you want to do. We're just at this point. We're just waiting for what's his name? I think what did he say his name was? I think he said his name was. I don't remember. I'm going to butcher it. I don't remember. He told us his name. I don't remember what it was, though. Okay. Grew up Catholic, became distant in religion, came back through Protestant, and I think it made sense for me personally. Awesome. Well, praise God. Praise God. Nothing wrong with being Catholic, but personally, I am glad you're Protestant. It's the more biblically consistent position. It's the more historically consistent position. It's what the early church fathers believed. I say that almost sarcastically because the early church fathers, a lot of them believed strange things because it was the Wild West of Christianity. There was all sorts of strange things that dogmas that were still trying to get fleshed out. I'm reading through Origen right now, and he, in a sense, was a universalist in a way, kind of. He believed that all sentient, reasonable creatures could use their reason to, or will ultimately use their reason to come back to God and be saved. So he believed that the devil and the fallen angels could be saved if they used their God-given reason in a godly and reasonable way. My question for the Catholics is, why isn't that part of sacred tradition? Capital sacred, capital tradition. Like, why do they get to pick and choose and use their private interpretation to decide what is and is not part of Catholic tradition? Within the Christian tradition, you can find almost any wild, wacky belief. So what as Christians do we have that we can use as a canon to judge what is and is not true? Well, it's the scriptures alone, because only the scriptures are God breathed. Only the scriptures are they have a distinct ontological nature that tradition does not have. Tradition is not God breathed. The magisterium is not God breathed. The Pope is definitely not God breathed, especially Pope Francis and this current Pope. I don't want to harp on Francis, rest in peace, but the current Pope, he's a raging leftist lunatic. Like, that guy's freaking crazy. I'm glad that I don't have to submit to him as the vicar of Christ. Heck no, that guy's a freaking lunatic. Absolutely not. So, yeah, thank God for Martin Luther, for Zwingli, for the proto reformers, Wycliffe, Tyndale, Huss. Thank goodness that they brought the church back to what it was supposed to be. So I'm so grateful for them. Calvin, of course, as well. Can't forget my boy Calvin. Well, I'll give this guy 3 more minutes, because he told me at 7:38 that he was going to call back, and it's now 7:45. So we will see. We will see. Missed call. What? I was going to call him back. Have a missed call from him. Here we go. End and accept. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello.
Hey, sorry about that. Not quite sure what happened, but what I meant to say was we're not currently talking about the burden of proof, but if you want to talk about it, we sure can.
I only got like a few minutes, so my real topic I want to talk about was, what was your reason again? You said that a natural universe or a fully natural universe isn't possible again?
Well, I don't think. I think I need to know exactly what you're referencing. I think what I mentioned was that.
We have no reason to believe.
Oh yeah. So
like today or something.
Yeah. So within. So can I ask you? Are you atheist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know how you would find that, but for now, yes.
Do you believe that the world or the universe was created by an intelligent being?
No.
Okay, good. I mean, not good, but good for the sake of argument, good.
Okay.
If my argument was, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, if the universe was not created intelligently, that is to say that if the world was created by pure chance, and if chance is the governing principle for all that has and will happen, then there's no uniformity of nature. So are you familiar with David Hume?
Yeah, I know who that is. Yeah.
Okay, so you know about the inductive principle of nature.
Yeah.
Okay, so my argument. Go ahead.
No, I just said the problem of induction. Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So what are your thoughts? So my argument is that if the world is governed by pure chance, then we have no reason to believe that the future will be like the past. Do you agree with that?
I mean, I don't know anyone who believes that the world is purely governed by pure chance, since the universe follows laws.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the universe does follow laws, but my question is, how can we be sure that those laws will continue into the future if there's nothing behind them, governing them?
Well, my argument would be, how do you know those laws aren't necessary or have to be the case?
They have to be the case by presupposition, because if they're not the case, then there's no way we could have laws of logic, for example.
Well, yeah, but I would say that's just trivially true. Like, of course, if I don't know, like tomorrow red was blue and blue was orange, then you couldn't really have laws of logic, I guess.
Yeah, you couldn't have laws of logic, and you couldn't have the scientific method. You couldn't have scientific inquiry at all.
What would be the problem with assuming that the laws are, or some fundamental part of nature is unchanging.
I think that.
You can prove it.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree you can't prove it, but I would also say you can't prove that God wants tomorrow to be like today either.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good question. I think that the problem of the uniformity of nature is only a problem if you assume chance as the governing principle, which as a Christian, I can't do that. I'm not allowed to do that because I believe that there is an intelligent force behind it. Now, if there wasn't, then I suppose we wouldn't even know it since since there would be no intelligibility, but there is intelligibility, so therefore there's a problem with that. Do you think that intelligibility is possible right now?
Well, of course, yeah.
Okay.
This conversation.
Do you think intelligibility will be possible in a million years?
I have no reason to think it won't be once something happens.
I think that since we're having a conversation right now, and since there's intelligibility right now, you cannot have an infinite succession of that. I think that because right now is happening, it's impossible to say that right now could not happen in the future. Does that make sense?
You're saying it's impossible to say that right now could not happen in the future?
I think that if the governing principle of the universe stopped working,
Yeah.
then how, like, are you familiar with William Lane Craig?
Yes.
Okay.
I know about the
So he uses the Kalam cosmological argument, and he uses the I forget exactly what he calls it, but basically the impossibility of infinite regression. I'm thinking the same thing in terms of the philosophical problem of induction. I think that if it's possible that the laws of logic could not work in the future, then they would also not have to work right now, since time is never ending.
Okay, you said it's one more time.
It's kind of complicated. What I'm saying is that because of the nature of chance isn't like a physical thing, right? Chance isn't like a flower or a burger that's gonna rot and die away. Like chance is
Description of the system.
yeah. Chance is intrinsic to our or not chance. Sorry. The laws of logic are intrinsic to our reality. And so, because they're intrinsic to our reality and they're intrinsic to our experience as humans, I would say and I would argue that if eventually they could not work, then we couldn't be having them right now because they are intrinsic to our experience. So, in the physical world, I would make the argument that gravity exists, and if gravity didn't exist in the future, then it couldn't exist right now. It's complicated, but I hope you're following with me.
That if the laws of logic, if they couldn't exist in the future, then they could not exist right now. That's it.
Yeah, because of the problem of infinite. I guess in this case it would be infinite succession. Like what's keeping the laws of logic in play right now, a priori to the human experience, that would then not allow it to be used in the future. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. I know you. Okay, so is this under the assumption that the laws of logic exist outside of the human brain?
Yes, I do believe that the laws of logic are a priori and independent of the human brain.
Yeah, I would argue. So I guess it's a lot. I don't really understand it. What's wrong with them just being descriptions that humans made up?
Well, if they're conventional, then they can be changed. But laws of logic, by their definition, can't be changed.
Well, the reason they can't be changed is because they're a description of reality. Reality doesn't really change.
If they're a description of reality, then they're unchanging.
Yeah, but if they're in the same way that, like, for example, like a tree will always be a tree, but the word tree doesn't have ontology.
Right. Language doesn't have ontology because language is a human convention. But language
Yeah.
and
So
laws of
why can't logic also be a human convention?
by its ontology, by its nature.
Well, how do we know it has ontology? It's not just a convention.
How do we know the laws of logic have ontology?
Yeah.
They have ontology by
So it
that's
seems like they're just descriptions that are always true, but that can be the case and them not have ontology.
yeah, I don't, yeah, I'll be there soon. Yeah, sorry. I think that sorry, people are trying to get a hold of me. That's a really good question. I think that the laws of logic are intrinsic to our experience, and I think that the ontology of the laws of logic are a different ontology than, say, language. So I think that language is a human convention that we use to describe phenomena that we experience, be it physical or metaphysical. But I think that the laws of logic transcend the ontological nature of language. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I understand that's what you're saying, but what I'm saying is, why would I believe that?
I think that you have to believe it by the impossibility of the contrary. If you don't believe that that laws of logic transcend the human experience, then you can't even have conversations about the human experience.
Well, I believe that they transcend the human experience in a way that reality transcends the human experience, because they're always true in reference to reality. But that doesn't mean they ontologically exist.
But when you say ontologically exist, are you talking about you're talking about metaphysically, right?
Anyway, yeah, metaphysically, transcendentally, physically, they don't exist in any category.
So your argument is that the laws of logic they don't have to necessarily exist within the human experience.
They merely have to accurately describe reality when conscious minds engage in conversation.
Can the laws of logic be different between people?
Probably not. Maybe, but probably not.
Okay, but if the laws of logic are conventional to the human experience, then how can we say that they transcend the human experience? Because if they don't change from person to person, then they transcend, and if they're transcendent, then they can't be conventional.
Well, let me see if they make this make sense. Do you agree that a rock will always be a rock, no matter whoever thinks too hard about it?
If you mean rock linguistic, if you mean rock,
like the atomic atoms, they'll be there no matter what anyone says or does, right?
if you're talking like physically, then yeah, but if you're talking linguistically, then no.
No, I'm not talking about language. I'm talking about physically.
Yeah, sure.
So, because the rock, which we'll just say reality, using as a representation, it'll always have that physical existence, then you'll always be able to describe it the same way. So that's why logic is always consistent and can never be different per individual, because when you perceive something, you're going to perceive it the same as someone else would. At least when we're talking about logic.
Right. I would push back and say that we can describe a rock and understand a rock because we can use the laws of logic to describe and understand the rock. So again, I think the difference between you and I is and correct me if I'm wrong again, but I again think that my understanding of the laws of logic are a priori to, say, a rock. So like if I see a rock, if I'm a mind and I see a rock, I can communicate to another mind and say, this is a rock. This is what a rock is. It's hard. It has this shape. It has generally this color. But in doing that, I'm employing the law of non-contradiction. So by necessity, and from the outset, a priori, I have to use the laws of logic. Do you see what I mean? Like you don't describe the laws of logic in the same way that you describe phenomena, be it metaphysical or physical.
True, but in order to use the laws of logic, they're going to be to reference of something.
In order to, well, the laws of logic have to reference something.
Either like a physical thing or like a concept.
Well,
in order for a valid statement.
I think the laws of logic define what a valid statement is.
That's false. I think that's true. But what I'm confused is, how does this not just make it a description of necessary reality? That's what I'm not getting.
Ask your question again.
So how does what you just said debunk the fact that the laws of logic don't just describe necessary reality?
Again, they don't describe it because they transcend it, because you have to use laws of logic to describe reality.
Well, that just proves you have to do it. That doesn't prove that they exist. Like, I have to use my brain in order to think. That doesn't mean my brain is eternal or exists necessarily.
Oh, I would absolutely disagree. I think Descartes pretty well made the case that you have to, I think, therefore I am. I think a mind has to exist to be self-referential.
Well, no. I mean, exist eternally. It doesn't have to be necessary.
Okay. Sorry, I was sorry, I got distracted. Yeah, I think again, I think that what you're describing is you're conflating, and again, maybe you can correct me, but it sounds like you're conflating the laws of logic with lived human experience. And my argument is that the laws of logic are a priori to the human experience. So again, going to your rock analogy, you have to use laws of logic to communicate. You have to use laws of logic to know that you have a functioning mind. Like, the laws of logic presuppose intelligibility to begin with.
Yeah, I understand that, but how does that make it not just a mental construct? Because you're basically just saying humans have to do this thing in order to think correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just, it's like a necessary presupposition. I don't know how that proves it has ontology.
Yeah,
I agree that people have to basically presuppose all these things, but that just proves that they have to do it. That doesn't mean it has ontology.
Yeah, I wouldn't get too hung up on the ontology or the ontological nature of the laws of logic. My argument has always been that the laws of logic reveal the mind of a creator, because the laws of logic cannot be conventional to the human experience. And since they come a priori and independent of human experience, my argument is that that shows that there's a God. Or if you don't want to say God, that's fine. You can say mind, you could say person, whatever word you want to use. There's something outside and above and a priori to the human experience that gives meaning to the human experience.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to, so how do you make that connection from, so let's just assume the laws of logic are how you say they are. How do you get from that to God?
I get there because I'm a Christian. So I personally don't make the jump to say laws of logic exist, therefore the Christian God exists. I would first start with general theism, and I would say that because the laws of logic exist, therefore a personal and intelligent creator exists and governs the world as we experience it today.
know what else.
I hope I presented my case well. I hope I answered your question well. Any last?
Right?
Sorry.
No, you did. You're good.
Good. And I hope that I was charitable.
You were. Thank you very much.
Someone said that was a bunch of gobbledygook.
That's very complicated stuff.
It does get very complicated. It does get very nuanced. Do you like watching debates?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I would recommend. I'm going to do a shameless plug. Please forgive me. I would recommend my debate with Chris May on my channel.
Okay.
He was a very smart. I say was. He still is. He's a very smart man. And our debate did, toward the end, especially, get very philosophical. And from our conversation that we've had, I think that you really would enjoy that. So I would point you to that. If you have time, watch it. Let me know what you think. And hopefully we can talk some more in the future.
Okay, thank you very much, man. You have a good one.
All right, you as well. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was a very pleasant call. See, guys, I can be nice. Everyone's like, you're so mean. I'm not mean. I'm very nice. Guys, I've gone for an hour and 20 minutes. I think I'm going to go ahead and call it at that. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. Thank you for the comments. Thank you to the caller. I didn't catch your name. I should have caught his name. But hey, Ray Blue, did that volume come? Did that volume come through pretty good on the phone? I don't have all these nice setups that a lot of these other guys have. Yep. Okay. Good. Scrumpulous. Great question. I'm gonna answer it another time. I'm tired. I got other stuff to do. I've gone for too long, but thank you all so much for everything. I appreciate all of you, and thank you to whoever this was that called in. 80% good volume. Good. Well, guys, thank you so much. God bless.